Hey everyone, I'm excited to be here with you all, with everyone, with all of us. Um, Sweet. My name is Audrey, and I will kind of just give us a little welcome, and we'll get started into the discussion. So thank you everyone so much for being here. This is a Collective Sweat Detroit event, and we host dance classes and residencies and movement scores, and now these dance forum programs, which was started in the midst of this shelter in place time as a way to build intentional community with each other and be in more discussion and be in collective space, which is pretty much what we're talking about today. And also holding the space as Collective Sweat folks is Miriam and Maddie, who will be facilitating different parts of this discussion. And today, like I said, we're thinking about collectivity and care. We're coming to those words thinking about collectivity as groups of folks who are building intentionally together without relying on internal or external hierarchies, and thinking about care as how we are each other's resources, how we can support each other and meet each other's needs as a community. And so we'll see what happens from there as we talk. And one last thing before I pass it over, I would love for us to all put in the chat a little intro of just our names, our pronouns, and maybe where we're zooming in from today. And maybe like a little emoji if you want, or like a hello, just so we can kind of like see each other's names and start to get to know each other before we get started. So feel free to throw in the chat, name, pronoun, where you are. And I think I'll pass it over to Maddie.
I was muted. Sure. So while people are typing in, if you feel like that would be fun or cool for you, I'm just going to do a quick, like, brief version of our space agreements. You got a full version of this when you registered, and I also just put a PDF of the full version in the chat. But just by being here, sorry, I'm looking at some notes. This is a space that values presence, to be here with intention and to participate with empathy and respect. And on the note of respect, just to be holding this space sacred as we do the dance studio space. And then in regards to privacy, we recognize that being online has different stakes and conditions for everyone. So we're not going to take, we all agree not to take videos or screenshots, but CSD, we are recording this. I have to go to a different note. We are recording this for community archival purposes. So you can have your camera on or off at any time. There's a little stop video at the bottom of your Zoom, and same for your, for sound, you know, try to be muted when you're not speaking, and then you can unmute to speak. Also, if like after the forum happens and you're like thinking about it and you actually don't want to be included in our recording, which will be on our website, just shoot us an email and we will, like, you know, do the thing, and we, you know, we can do voice, whatever. We have the technology, so we can just like let us know what you need and we'll do what you require of us. And our email, it's just collectivesweatdetroit@gmail.com. And I will put that in the chat in a moment as well. I'm also your tech person for the day. It's my first time being the CSD Zoom tech person, so a little nervous. So if anything comes up, just like shoot me a private chat message and I'll do my best. And I think that's all I have. I forgot who's next, Audrey or Miriam.
It's me, don't worry about it. So let's start by having a group check-in, and we're gonna do, like, it's kind of like a 3-part situation. But first we want to start with our bodies. So actually, to start us off, I want to quote Resma Menachem from My Grandmother's Hands, and I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing his name correctly, so bear with me. But he says, we need to enter collective action with settled bodies. Bringing a settled body to any situation encourages the bodies around you to settle as well. So I want to start us off with a moment for breath. And as you exhale, you'll hum. So what I what that means is that you have to come off mute for a moment so that we are equally hearing each other hum as we are humming ourselves. The tone doesn't really matter. You can just, whatever tone feels most comfortable for you, but let's start with 3 and then see where we go. But breathing in and then humming on the exhale. I said that correctly. All right, so you can start by closing your eyes and finding a comfortable position. And let's just notice where your breath is right now. Notice how your body feels in the chair, in the seat, whatever it's pushing against. And then we're going to take an inhale in. And on the exhale, humming together. Breathing in. Exhale. And last time, breathing in. And just noticing how your body feels now in this moment. The way that you listen to other people hum, as well as felt it in your own body and how those two were in conversation. Letting your breath return back to normal. And then whenever you're ready, you can start to blink your eyes open, or if they're already open, widen them and come back to the virtual conversation. Cool. That felt really good, actually. I needed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So Maddie here is going to post the questions that we wonder. So this was online. We posted it on our Instagram and stuff, but we want to read them all here today because this is how we've been thinking about it, just so that you know where our brains are, and then we'll shift. So the questions we wonder: what does it mean for the dance community to embody collectivity? What are the ways in which it's shown up in our practices, both presently and previously? How can we build towards a community where we intentionally practice collectivity? How can we embody care in continued and sustainable ways? And how can we think beyond capitalist or white supremacist structures that keep us separated and in competition with each other to create spaces that actually support all of us? So these are the things that were coming up when we were just talking about collectivity as organizers. So we may get to some of these, but we also want to hear from you, and we will in a second, about what questions you've been thinking about. But before we do that, I feel like I'm doing a lot of befores, but before we do that, we want to take a second to journal. So if you have something to write with and to write on, or you need to take a second to grab those things, we're going to take 3 to 5 minutes or so journaling just for ourselves. And then we'll come back to like group work in a second. But the question is, what is your intention for this space as an individual? So how do you want to arrive? What are you hoping to receive? But what is your intention for this space? And that's mostly for you. Like, we're not gonna share out the answers to these questions, so you can respond however, or draw or whatever, but just so that you have a moment where you want to acknowledge that. And we're gonna take the next 3 minutes or so journaling what our intention is. So if we could get some music, DJ, and yeah. And I'll check back in with you all in a couple of minutes. have about a minute or so to continue thinking and journaling. I'm timing it. So but continue thinking about your intention. For those of you who have just joined, we're taking a second to journal about what our individual intention is for the space today. And then we're going to shift here in a second, but we have like roughly 40 seconds left to think about that and to simmer on it before we move on. I see that folks are still writing. Do we want to take maybe like another couple of minutes? I see a couple of head nods. I'll take like another 2-ish, and then we'll come back. So with like 30 seconds left, we are starting to wrap up those thoughts. And I'm just actually gonna jump us over here. The next second, we wanna have a whiteboard moment where we talk about what other things you've been thinking about, what are the other questions that have come up around collective work or experiences, so that we can talk about them further. So our questions are kind of like just the way that we've been thinking about it, but we also want to hear how y'all have been. It's collectivity, so right, we want to hear what everybody is thinking about too. So if we can move over to a whiteboard, my friend Maddie. Yeah. And so then we'll each write whatever questions have been coming up for us on the whiteboard. And the way you should be able to, I think I have to do a full screen. You should be able to edit this at the top of your screen. If you're on a computer, it'll say view options, where it says you're viewing Maddie's screen. And you can just scroll down to annotate, and that'll give you all of the options for writing on the board. And then as people are writing, if there's a particular question that you're like, ooh, yes, this one, or this thought, whatever, then where it says stamp, to just give us like one of these, give us a heart or something so that we can highlight that as a question that we want to talk about. Yeah, does that all make sense to the team? Cool. All right, cool. So we'll take this next couple of minutes to write out questions on here, things that we're thinking about. about collective action and stuff.
And also want to offer, if any of the intentions for our group discussion that you wrote about feel like pertinent or feel like you want to share, you can also throw that up on the whiteboard as well. So if there's like an intention to, it's cool, Maddie. I mean, it is fine to have the background music while I'm adding in. I'll finish my thought and then we can get to that good sound. I was just gonna say, if there's an intention that you feel like you really want to see discussed, please do add that as well. One more minute to think if there's anything that you want to, anything else you want to throw up on the whiteboard or in the chat. And then we can get started into our discussion. Cool. I think I'll start reading aloud what folks have put up. So we have how have we been thinking about, under the heading of how have we been thinking about collectivity and care? How can we cultivate more connectivity between communities of practice, i.e. dance community, music community, healing arts, etc.? How can we show up responsibly and honestly to our work in our communities, mindful of the intersectionalities of positioning, identity, and access? Wondering what others are needing at this time. How can we truly share? How does collective organizing work or not in systems that require hierarchy, nonprofit sector? And then in the chat from Carlos, you have to give space and listen to the concern that matters for everyone. What stories have emerged for you during this time of Corona? What new approaches have you come across that give you hope, excitement, inspiration? What has been your escape, i.e. not feeling guilt of having to deal with certain content that is in our collective spaces society? Sweet. All right, so we have this cute growing little whiteboard document with a few of our emerging thoughts. And I think we'll source both these questions and we'll source Collective Sweat's question for our discussion. And I think I want to offer for us to jump into our discussion, starting with how we are coming into collectivity and care. So sort of like this bolded with the two hearts up here. Would love to open up discussion to say just a few words maybe. How do you think about collective work? How do you think about care? How have you been embodying it presently and previously? And we'll use the chat to write our names to kind of sign up to speak. So if I want to go, I'll just write my name, Audrey, in the chat, and then we'll kind of call on folks in the line that they sign up, and we'll go from there. So I'll write in the chat to be clear. As our first question, just how have you been thinking about collectivity and care and embodying it? And this could maybe be a short or even a long answer, but just to get us started into our discussion. So you can feel free to add your names into the chat. And I think Maddie's gonna put our little whiteboard as a file into the chat, so we'll have that to return to whenever. Go for it, Miriam. Start us off.
Right on. So one thing, I think of collective work a lot in terms of like the way that it works with your family and your friends, and like how if you were having an event, or really if you're having like the family reunion, if you're having a function, a Christmas party on Zoom, whatever, you have to collectively pull it together. It's not usually like one person making sure everything happens. Like somebody's bringing the paper towels and the utensils and the paper plates, and somebody's bringing drinks, and somebody's bringing food, or whatever the situation may be. And I think that helps me understand what collective work can look like in groups who are trying to organize in other ways. It's like, sometimes it feels like when we talk about collective work that it can feel like a really kind of out here label. Is like, what does it mean? It's like, no, you do this all the time. Like, who's getting groceries and who's getting toilet paper in your home? Like, how are you splitting up responsibility is really the way that's helped me think about it. So yeah.
Thanks, Miriam.
Yeah.
I want to open it up if anyone else wants to add how you're coming to those words. How are you coming to the words collectivity and care? I can add, I'll put my name in the chat. I'm thinking of it as building structures in which we can support each other without having to rely on external systems such as the state or such as like the nonprofit grants hustle or other like state-based systems of value to support each other. So how can my needs as a person and a person in community with other dance artists be met by the networks of connection that I have? So those are the questions of how I'm thinking of it. Cool, Steph. I'm gonna pass that over to you. Go for it.
Hi, everyone. So the way that I think about collectivity is I start to think about the needs of everyone involved, whether it's a small community, a big community, and then identifying who within the community has the skills in order to meet those needs. And yeah, I think growing webs of people. So thinking about like different communities within the arts. So thinking about the dance community and the music community and the healing arts community, someone else mentioned earlier, and finding the people within those communities who can help resource whatever it is that folks are needing, as opposed to thinking outside of those communities. So just like introducing people to others and just starting to like really bring people in, and in that way we can know like who has these skills, like who can offer this on this day and who can offer something else on another, because I feel like we all know what sorry, my chihuahua that I'm dog sitting is like doing a lot. But yeah, so like I feel strongly that we have the skills that we need, and if we don't, we know the people who do. And so I think just continuing to build this web, this network of folks who want to provide and who also want to brainstorm around how we bring each other in to to do the work and to help us get what we need.
Thanks, Steph. I want to open it up for anyone else who might want to chime in on the question of how you think about and embody collectivity and care. And again, you can always just throw your name in the chat. I also feel inspired to offer a next question, if that's cool. I think something that Steph said makes me want to offer, like, what are the literal practices that you have been engaging in to practice collective care, specific maybe to dance community, if that's how you're entering into this space. So what are the practices? Miriam mentioned like preparing with a family to make a meal, cooking together, that's practice. So would love to discuss how other folks feel that. So what are the practices? maybe I'll also add like what are the practices you want to engage in too. Maybe if like the things aren't automatically coming, what do you want to engage in that maybe you're not yet? So I see is putting their name in the chat. Go for it.
Okay, do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Sorry, I jumped in late, so I was also kind of nervous about talking because of that. But it's nice to see you guys all. You guys all seem very cool, like beautiful people. In terms of like actual practices that I have enjoyed, one that I really appreciate is like to have a kind of like organized discussion space, like kind of like, you know, the one that we're in right now, where someone puts their hand up or puts their name in the chat in order to talk. And I don't know what this is called. These are like just like collective discussion things, routines, whatever structures. Like these are super helpful for me, I think, in collective spaces, and especially the one with like the hands also for like agreement. I don't know if you guys know that one, but that's really nice. Like when someone says something that you agree with, then you can just be like this, and then you can see visibly like how much agreement there is. And if there's like a lot of agreement, then it's clear to the whole group that like we want to collectively keep going in that direction in our discussion. So that's something that's super helpful. And I even tried that once with housemates of mine when we were talking about like cleaning stuff, and there were a lot of loud voices, and that kind of trying to facilitate the discussion like that, like actually kind of seemed to help a little bit. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thanks, Zoe. So it sounds like communication structures and different ways of communicating, whether that's like physical in presence or online, etc. Sounds like practices. Sweet. Do other folks have things they want to add into a chat about what practices that you're already engaging in or want to see?
Hi.
Yeah,
This
go
is
for it.
Shirley. What I would like to say as far as one of the things that I like to do, or I try to do when I'm hiring artists, I try to look for artists locally that can offer what I'm looking for or for my vision. Um, I do hire choreographers locally, and I hire choreographers in New York or Denver, people that I know, um, and I've seen their work. One of the things that has been a little disappointing is if you're hired as a dancer, okay, and I do pay my dancers. I pay them for the shows. If I have the resources to pay for rehearsals, then I pay them for rehearsals. But one thing that's quite disappointing is if you hire a dancer locally and you're preparing for a big show, stay to complete the show. If you get another offer that comes in and it's quick money and you leave, that's a disappointment. So some of the young artists, you have to see the big picture. And I know we like that money, and that fast money is wonderful, but sometimes you have to see the big picture. What's the end? And much more comes after that. So that's one of my issues that I have with, um, you're trying to work with the young artist that you see that's very talented, but they're ready to get that money immediately. I did a play, and the same thing with that. You working with, I had actors, musicians, and singers, and it was a challenge. And, I love helping young people, but, you got to see the overall picture. Now, this is my feeling, and this is my experience that I've been through. And we have here locally in Detroit, you have a lot of talented young artists. But I guess, what is it? Commercial dancing with the artists, they're ready to go and do that and make that money immediately. But if you say you sign a contract to join a company, don't come to the rehearsals, for months and months. You get a training, and then you get this offer, and you're gone, and you're working on choreography. So the mindset of working collectively has to be within the community as well. It really, really does, and it's quite disappointing. That's it.
Yeah, that's important to note, that it really does have to be, we all have to be in it to make it work. It can't just be a couple of people trying to make it a collective, or else it falls. It can. So yeah, Audrey, I see your name is in the chat. I'm gonna pass it to you.
I just saw you unmuted, Shirley. Did you want to add to your? Do you want to go? I don't want to cut you off.
Yes. Also, if there is a way, to work with young artists, I'll give you an example. So I wanted to hire a house dancer. So I had this vision of a choreography that needed a house dancer. So I went out, went to some of those house battles, saw a young man, got a little history on him, his background, and fabulous dancer. Looked at some of his choreography, fabulous. So, we set up an agreement to come out, and he worked with the company. But when he came out and worked with the company, he got a little intimidated because he thought the company was, I guess, it would take baby steps. So I told him, like, listen, give them what you got. They will either mess up and catch up. That's what they're going to do. But it appeared that he was so intimidated with the dancers, he could not complete the process. And he bailed out on me. And I told this young man, I said, if you have someone that believes in you and they see a vision in you, take that next step. Step out of your comfort zone. If you never choreograph for a company like this, but someone is seeing a vision of you doing it and that you're capable of doing it, try it. That confident level has to be there within the community as well. I mean, it's just, it's, you sit back and you see all this, and there's another artist. I'm like, okay, why don't you mix some tap dancing in with that jet? Look out, try and mix it up to bring in a little bit more. But, I'm much older, close to 60, approaching 60. I don't know much, but I'm like, listen, I'm not in it like that. I'm old school, but sometimes that old school will help you reach to where you need to be if you listen.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shirley. I really hear you. I was going to add, just to kind of piggyback off of what you were sharing, that I think you mentioned, like, the need to like take another job and being in things for money, and how we need to be collectively as a community all sharing a mindset towards we're doing this together, we're staying with the project that we're in through. And I think you bring up a really great point of how like money inherently is a tool that separates us. The need to hustle and maybe jump to another gig or pick something else up, or always be like going from one thing to the next, not able to maybe stay with a group and see a project through, is like, it's a product of the capitalist hustle that tells us we got to keep going, always the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I wonder if like another discussion question that we can maybe try to all brainstorm as a group could be around this thing of like, how do we think beyond the tool of money and the tool of capitalism and the tool of white supremacy to not be separated, to not be having to go individually finding the things that are going to make us work for ourselves, but to build together as a group. And I see some names in the chat, so I'm not even going to offer that as a next question. I'm just going to pass it to the next folks, and I'm going to pass it on to Dantes.
Hey, what up though? I'm Dantes. I'm kind of new. Well, I am new to this. This is my first time being here. I believe I've seen the Collective Sweat Instagram maybe a couple times. But me personally, I come from hip hop culture. And for those who know hip hop culture, we kind of come from nothing. So when we talk about these systems that we're trying to like get out of, to me, it all really has to start with integrity. Like, how much are you gonna really have for us, for humans? Like, hip hop has taught me that whether we have funds or we don't, whether we have it or we don't, we're still gonna do it. So, and that's just like, I think that we just need to keep instilling that in the hearts of our youth, that it's not always about what you're going to get, it's really about what you can give. And that's just a mindset that's been a long loss, but here in Southwest we're kind of bringing that back. But yeah, my biggest thing is just trying to really show people the real integrity that we all have.
I see Zoe's name in the chat. Thank you, Dantes, for your sharing. Calling on Zoe.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for saying that. That really is strong. I would like, I guess I should say, like, I just moved here actually from Belgium. So I'm in like a totally different, I just come from a totally different context, I guess. But I was based in Brussels, and I know a lot of dancers there. And one of the dancers there started just recently, like 2 weeks ago, started this Facebook community, which has just been this like immense source of inspiration for me. Like, she just is doing this like all on her own. She's taking the just the initiative to like really guide along this group. Like, every time somebody joins the group, she asks them to introduce themselves, to say, why are you here? Like, what do you do? She encourages people to celebrate their accomplishments, to like post in the group like their own little promos, to like just to write a little description of like, hey, I'm Zoe, I do this kind of dance, and this is what I like, and this is who I am. And she's also like put out some videos about like the importance of celebration, which is like, after sometimes we go in the studio and we are, like we're focused on this, like our goal is just huge, we want to make a performance. Like, that's so stressful. Like, when you're in a studio and you're like, oh, shit, I have to make a performance. Like, So you can get like super down on yourself because that doesn't just like materialize right away, you know? So she was talking about the importance of like every time that you are in this space where you're focused and you're dancing and you're working at it, then like at the end of that, just kind of like give yourself some time to celebrate. And then like, you know, and then you could just go easier on yourself and you can like relax afterwards until the next day when you go back to the studio, and then you have like more energy to continue. And I don't know, I don't want to like talk forever, but this is just something that this group, this Facebook group, I think maybe I could share it with you guys if you guys are interested too, because really like anybody, I mean, it's for dancers, and it might be a nice place for you guys to just check out what's going on there as well, if you want.
Yeah, that would be great if you want to pop it in the chat or something, and then we can send it out with all of our post conversations too. I want to ask a question before we move, because we've been in this space for like an hour now, and we have like an hour-ish to go. So we'll take a break here in a second. But before we do, the question that I want to pose is, how can we embody care? And then I want to come back to this question Audrey gave earlier of how we think beyond capitalist and white supremacist structures. But that feels like a loaded, that feels like a loaded piece. But how do we embody care? And I think to give this maybe a little bit of context is I'm thinking a lot about the ways that being in this space with COVID-19 has made all of our lives obviously very different, but it's also made us have to care for each other in really specific ways. The way that you interact with your jobs is probably a little bit different. Even collective sweat, like we changed the way that our tone and how we even interact with each other in our own meetings so that we can leave space for things like check-ins and checkouts. So yeah, like thinking about those things. How else can we embody care as a community, as dancers who maybe see each other on Instagram, or people who are working in the same field in the same cities? Yeah, what does that look like? That's my question. And I don't mind sitting and allowing us all to think. Yeah, Carlos, whenever you're ready.
Greetings, everyone. How's everyone this afternoon? I think one of the things that, in response to the question that you posed, and what I'd also like to put out there is, for myself as an artist, I think it's really about nurturing and cultivating talent and artisans. And I've really been on this thing about, as someone that's comes in contact with many different artists on many different mediums, is that, you know, someone that's further down the road in the journey of life and maybe performance and my own collection of things, is that, you know, honoring people where they are, you know, because I've definitely been in that space of wanting to try to really feel like I wanted to nurture someone, but you might be ahead of the curve before even they are. And so approaching certain situations where you kind of, you know, one thing even in my own teaching is that, you know, you can't be a pitcher trying to pour into a Dixie cup, right? Because sometimes the information we might hold might be so dense and we might not even realize how dense it is, and somebody might just be at a different place in their life and existence on the planet. And so by taking more time to figure out where they are and where some of their goals are, I think that helps as individuals as we're communicating, and then it also helps as a community, right? I think in my own practices, I tend to work better one-on-one, because in that way I feel like that honors a more a capacity to really engage deeply with individuals and find out where they are and where we're landing, and then actually use that as a jump off point to then bring others in to engage and empower that initial connection with that individual to say, hey, well, we're on the same page. And as we bring others in, give them the power to also step in and fill in, because we've already become come on to one accord, right? And so um, I think that, entering into a space like that can help you discern whether or not that new artist is in a gig mentality. Are they in a concert world mentality? Are they in dance theater world mentality? What are the places that they're looking to grow and develop? Because then you can say, hey, this might be a good fit, or hey, this might be a good fit for you for this amount of information, and I'd love to help you in this capacity. But I also honor if this might not be this right place for you right now, and being okay with that. Not not everything's gonna fit everything. It just is what it is, and being okay with that. But then honoring that people can still say, hey, I'm still a cheerleader for you in which way I can, in approaching it from that perspective. So I kind of wanted to just kind of give that out to the space.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I see another name in this chat, Steph. Steph.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Miriam, for mentioning the idea of checking in, because that's some way that I like to embody care during this time. Just checking in with folks and asking for what they need. Like, what is it that you're needing right now? And if I can't offer it, I know someone who can. And if I don't know someone who can, I know someone who knows someone who can. And just like having that determination to help folks, and knowing that I don't have all the answers, but I have a huge network of people who have another network of people who have another network of people who may have the answer. And also, one thing that I've been working on a lot is just like, we're talking about collectivity, but I'm also working a lot in solitude, just like trying to figure out what it is that I am needing. And I like to think of like my network of people as this like mycelium, this like network of fungi that like lives, underneath the soil and is in this dark place. And they're still talking to each other, but I think it's important for people to check in and yeah, like honor where people are at, and also ask them what how you can support them in whatever space that they're in. And I think that's a really important thing. And thank you, Carlos, for also mentioning, and speaking to that, the fact that people are in different places right now with their artistry, with trying to figure out how to pay rent, how to figure out how to feed themselves. And everyone's needs are different. Everyone's in a different space. Like, I identify as a dancer, but I haven't really moved in a minute. I've just been like working on music because that's something that liberates me right now. And I think of like the collective body in the future, and how my work in solitude with my music production and my DJing can like offer some type of like liberated body when we all come together and we're all back at the club. And that's something that I think about a lot. And yeah, I think it's just, yeah, important to just ask people, like, how are you? What are you doing? What are you needing? And if people need to be alone for a bit, like, that's okay too.
Yeah.
I don't know. This feels like I went off course, but it's just where I'm at.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think asking is like hugely clarifying. Huge. Sorry. Something about the way I just said that like irritated me. But can be really clarifying for how you're interacting with somebody or how you're interacting with an organization or whatever. So, and I think sometimes we just are too scared to, or whatever, like we get in our heads about it. It's like, just ask what they need from you, or how you can contribute. But Carlos, I see you passing it back.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in there, Steph. I really appreciated you saying that you were honoring space by making music. And I wanted to, as an interdisciplinary artist, And I'd like to offer that everyone call themselves that now, because in this time of Corona, you have picked up some skill sets, whether you wanted to or not. And that is to embrace that you're more than just a dancer. I think I've always that, yeah, I move, but I'm a martial artist, I'm a dancer, I'm a photographer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a musician. So, so that you really, as much as I detest labels, but because of that commercialism or putting things in packages to try to understand and market and sell it, that interdisciplinary type of artist, or that, I just want to encourage everyone. And that's part of why I show up. That's part of one of the things that I've tried to do as far as over this time of COVID. I can't make it to everything, but just the act of showing up to your practice, showing up for others in your subsets of communities that you have an interest in, I think that holds a lot of weight. Even if you show up and you don't talk that much, it's just you being present. That might be the mental stability you might need, just to hear other voices, to know that you're not lost on this journey.
Oof. Sorry, I'm muting me a second. I want to pose like a second part to this question of care. The full question is, how can we embody care in continued and sustainable ways? And so the part that I'm pulling out is the continued and sustainable. I guess I'm just wondering, what does that look like long term? What does that look like if we are ever in the same space soonish? What does that look like when we can physically support each other by showing up to shows or showing up to classes and things like that? But what does it look like long term? How do we sustain the same kind of care that we are developing now later? I hope that makes sense, but that's the part of it that I'm thinking about. Cool. Becca.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay, I don't ever use these AirPods, but okay, yes, I think a lot of it, I just agree with what Carlos said, showing up. I think right when you asked that question, I think it was very clear that it's about this continued showing up, like you said, to shows, to people's things. I know for me, I had to realize how much was here. I had moved back from California and was gone for a long time. And I think just being so open to what was here and taking it in and just getting out of this whatever mindset that we have of kind of being alone in this, or not, things aren't there that we're looking for, just constantly challenging that and saying things are here and knowing that that will manifest. But I think sharing from just me knowing Audrey, connected to knowing about this space, and then I've shared with a lot of people, from there what's going on, in this space. And I think it's just that constant interconnectedness and trying to remember it's there. But I think showing up and now remembering what is there. And like I said, this space, I think this is so important. I think this is that I know of is one of the only things going on right now of a forum or a space like this. So first of all, just amazing work for having this, and I'm grateful. But continuing whatever this is, and I guess, yeah, like you said, asking what people need. I think I want to know more what people need. I would love to know what I can do or be of service, instead of just caught up in whatever I'm trying to search for, because I know it's an exchange. So
Thank you for that. Any other thoughts? And then if not, then we'll take a little 5 or so break. other ways we can think about continued sustainable support? Audrey.
I can add a little thought. I'm thinking about time a lot lately and how I think I've been able to show care for myself in my relationship to time. And it's sort of coming together in my head of like when I was a little bit more like before the pandemic, I feel like I was running all over the place, running from rehearsal to show to thing to meeting. And that was not sustainable for my system at all. I was sustaining a system that was asking me to perform at a certain level. And so I think I would ask that question of myself, to continue to be in a relationship with time that is towards care for myself and is also offers care to other people. So if I'm saying yes to projects and if I'm showing up to working with people, supporting people in my life, I want to do that in a relationship to time that gives projects the time that it needs to fulfill itself, or gives ideas the time things needs to incubate, or not scheduling things like one after the other, giving myself transition time, giving myself rest time, expecting and honoring when my like coworkers or team members or whatever organizing space I might be in, when they need rest, and making space to say, oh, I can't come today. I need to take care of myself, or saying that myself when that means I need to take care of myself. So I guess my approach to trying to embody sustainable care is like just taking care of my own self and making space for the people I am in community with to be in that practice with themselves.
Yeah. Shirley.
As far as care, we have to support each other. I think a couple people said, you have to show up and be there. Um, I have a question. Are there places where young artists can go to get that care, to help mold them? Doesn't have to be a company or anything like that, but is there a place where young artists can go and mold themselves and build and let them know that, you know, what you're doing is contributing to the community. However, you feel you can get out there and contribute, it's reaching someone, being there for others, supporting the shows and the concert. I believe here in Michigan, is it Jury? I think she has like a show that she does every year. Is that right? Where artists can come together and have different shows. We need more of those. We need more of those. So, you know, the grant money is fine, if you don't have to meet half of it. But, um, if we can create a tool where young artists can showcase their talent, and so the community can see that they're out there. That would be a fabulous way that we can do that. And all that takes money, but there are people that are willing to rent a venue to have a show. If you can get the artists together, like what you guys do is absolutely fabulous. I had some time. This is my first time coming to one of your meetings. Normally I'm off doing some everything, but what you guys doing is absolutely wonderful. But if there's a way that we can open the door to bring all this together without telling an artist, okay, in order for you to be in the show, you have to pay X amount of money to present your piece. Why do that? It's already hard enough as it is. But, if there's a way that we could do that.
Yeah. Can you all hear me? All right. Okay. You were frozen for a second, so I didn't know if I was fine on y'all's end. I want to pull out something that you said, Shirley, that was like, they have to know that you're there, like knowing that that young artists are creating, like knowing each other at all, is a thing that I think we've talked about as organizers a few times. It's like, how do we know the other people who are creating and organizing, who are thinking about some of the same things, who are maybe creating in other ways, but are in ways that are connected. And so how do I even know those people was a thing. And so something about you saying like, to support these young artists and where is the place for them to go and build themselves and show off their work, so that we can even know that they exist, that they're there. I don't know. That's a question I almost want to come back to. I did promise y'all a 5 minute, so we can do that now. Let's take maybe 5 minutes to get up, stretch, do whatever you need to do, and come back, say at 3:25, and then we'll just like have a continue this conversation for a bit, just so we can get to some of these other deeper questions we were thinking about. Yeah, before we go. So I will see you at 3:25. Pause there. Okay, I don't know if folks are back, but if you are and you want to turn your camera on or not, I guess you don't have to. But if you're back, hello. So first I want to start by lifting up Stephanie, what she wrote in the chat. And it just says, I wanted to add that normalizing this idea of checking in with the community could help build sustainable practices around care, both now and post-pandemic. Organizations that list their values and goals should include actively asking communities that they work in how they can support them. And yeah, I wanted to make sure that that didn't get kind of lost, because I think that is also in connection to some of the questions that came up in our whiteboard, which was one of them that I'm looking at says, wondering what others need in this time and how we can share that. And I guess I'm thinking about that like in relation to how organizations can support the needs that people do eventually share. And the other question that felt like in conversation with that came up in the whiteboard was, sorry, I'm literally looking at it, is how can we cultivate more connectivity between communities of practice? Is that what I'm looking at? I don't know. But yeah, it's just this question of like, sorry, this was so clear in my brain in the break, and now I'm here and I'm like, what was the thought that I had? I'm sorry. Okay, anywho. But just thinking of ways that people can communicate their needs and organizations can be aware of that and hopefully in response and support. So I actually just want to, I guess I'll read this question here that was on the board of like, what do people need? What are folks needing at this time? And how can we share that to each other? As I think a way of starting us and jumping us back in. What do we need as artists, as folks in general? And how do we share that to each other so people can even be in response and conversation and collective action or whatever you need together? Yeah. To pull, to pull on what Miss Shirley was saying before we went on the break, is it sounded like there needs to be spaces where young artists can like work on their form in the directions that they want to go, especially in Detroit, but I'm sure also other spaces, so that we know who they are and how we can support them. We need more spaces like this where people can get together. What else do we need, Becca?
I think, for a while I've been wanting to create this space. This is, back so many years ago when I was just dancing and felt like there wasn't even just this very basic of, there wasn't like a clean space. I felt like I wanted to rent out or dance when I had to have rehearsals or have shows and things like that. And now it's definitely transformed into more of a community, something that needs to be for community and all of that. So it's this remembering, and I've been thinking in my mind, what do I need and all of these things. And it's like almost forgetting that. Hang on, I'm so sorry, 1 second, because I can't hear anything. I'm just gonna yell 1 second. Okay, but basically what I'm saying is I've been kind of, racking in my mind how to create this and almost forgetting look at these, amazing people trying to see what, how this community can build, and basically, so collaboration, and realizing, okay, like exactly what you're saying, I've been trying to do, and I know there's many other people out there, and kind of getting this group vision just together, and like spaces like this create this. I already want to talk to people more individual about, okay, what I'm thinking about and how could this build. And I appreciate hearing everything because it really helps me, and just thinking of a different platform for performances and things like that. So just, I guess what I'm trying to say is, maybe more inspiration round and round that, these things are possible, and that, by working together and hearing what we need, and hopefully I can, work more individually with some of you, and, we can make this happen, just inspiration that possible.
Go for it, Audrey.
I can share just a little thought. Oh, I hear myself echoing. Do y'all hear me okay? Okay, cool. I feel like this question of what we need, I'm like sitting here kind of having a hard time. Like, what do I need? Just working on like allowing myself to have needs in my own personal life. But I think what I need is communication structures that aren't reliant on like social media blasting as ways to speak to each other. I think I need more direct interaction. And especially in this pandemic, it's like a lot of things are more through online, and there is space to be together in person, and I have been, but I want that more. So I need ways to like be able to respond and reach out that aren't relying on an Instagram or a Facebook post, because I feel like it gets lost, and like it all kind of blends in together and nothing stands out on social media for me personally. So I would love to see, as we build together, more ways, whether it's even like a listserv, like email sometimes feels more like tangible at times. Maybe there's like more town hall type meetings with groups of folks like today's discussion, but I need more ways to speak to each other and hear each other that aren't lost in the vacuum of online space. Maybe I'll pass it to Steph.
Before you do, I just want to point out, so Carla sent to me and I sent to y'all some resources that you might find helpful. So they're kind of like clumped together. There's the YouTube link and then there's another link there. But I just wanted to make sure we saw them, and then I will make a note to also send these same resources out with the rest of the things we do post conversation. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know who you just called on, but whoever that, I think Steph.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what I'm needing, desiring, is for this artist grant funding matrix to be more open to like emerging artists and open to funding them, because I apply for a lot of grants, and I have a collective of folks, and we apply for many grants, and it kind of breaks my heart when we have these conversations, and like we have to list all of these partners who are more established, and because we know that that's going to make our application stronger, and that just feels sucky, because I think about emerging artists who don't have those connections and who don't have those like bigger platforms or institutional support, and it makes me really angry, and so yeah, I'm wanting that space to be like more penetrable for emerging artists. And because I talk to a lot of folks, and then they get they express that they get really discouraged around grant writing, because they're like, well, I've made 2 works and one of them was in college, and I don't have any institutional support, so I don't think I'm going to get this grant. or they have to, or they're like pushed to apply for smaller grants. And it's unfortunate because then the same people are getting the same grant money. And it's just like, well, there are these new artists who have incredible ideas, novel ideas, like innovative ideas, and they're not getting the same support. And it really pisses me off. And so, yeah, that's something that I really dream of.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that I'm seeing everything that's coming through the chat properly. Okay. Sorry, I'm like reading and thinking all at the same time. Go ahead, Carlos. I see your name just popped up, and I will call on you while I'm pulling.
Kind of chiming in on what Steph is saying. I think that that's part of what these micro communities that you spoke about mycelium, and it's I've been kind of researching mushrooms and all that kind of stuff, and their uh their role in nature, their role in life, right? And I think in that same role, operating in a micro community can help you maybe cultivate ideas to get to those next places, right? Because we've all had the questions of how do we get past the gatekeepers, or how do we raise our own visibility as individual artists. um uh and I think that that does happen by showing up and supporting each other in these micro worlds, because maybe um having a community where you can maybe answer a question, you can actually get a question answered as well, right? And that's how we lean on the collective bandwidth of people's knowledge and our networks, that can be extremely beneficial, right? So if I put some resources because I happen to, of all things, I somebody sent me some information, and I ended up going to a networking thing with artists, trying to receive money in Texas. And they greeted me with open arms. If somebody hadn't thought of me to send that, then I got all that information and I was like, oh man, this could be something that is a possibility, an option. And it's only my responsibility and duty is that when I get next to another micro community, it's like, hey, this might be something for you. It may or may not. It may be that guiding light to give you some resources to help you break through a smaller plateau that can get you then a little bit more bandwidth, that can then get you a little bit more bandwidth and a little bit more bandwidth. Um, and having community, you understand, and one of the ways that I've been working is being okay with understanding that there are iterations. This idea of the gig economy, of where you have to produce and you have to have a product, versus where's maybe this collective is more about, okay, I'm also interested in process as part of my artistry. And that is one thing that we all as individuals have to navigate. What do we weigh those responsibilities of, how much do I have time to invest in myself, my collaborators respect in their time to either produce said thing, or do we all go in it saying, hey, we're going to have a happening at the end of this engagement? And that's kind of the ways that I've been trying to reframe even like different landing points or approaches to generating work. Now, I've done the whole thing. I started it as a house dancer and a martial artist, and then got into the world of concert dance and dance education and teaching, and being a visiting professor at different places. So I've been all the way around. So I know it on all points. And again, getting back into these places where we can support each other in micro communities, I think will always benefit, and we can navigate and hopscotch to where we need to accumulate the things that we need.
to both of your points, it makes me think of like a conversation I was having with some young dancers who were still in college about ways to navigate the professional world. And I was realizing that a theme that was coming up for me when they asked about my experience was that it was based in who I knew. It was based almost entirely of like, oh, well, I happened to go to this class where I met this person who then later pulled me in for a project, who then later hired me for their company or whatever. And so my thoughts are like going and coming, but nonetheless, but it makes me think about those micro communities that you're talking about. The idea of like, as a young emerging artist, it was really me learning my community that helped my career, me learning who was in the room, who was, and moving past the spaces where maybe I second guessed if I was in the room, why I was in the room at all, to learn who else, how they were creating and whatever. I guess I'm just thinking about like the idea of like as a young artist, that my micro communities is what pushed me forward. Almost, I would say that's pretty much what got me to where I am now, just in general, is like how did I build community and how did we serve each other? And that was, I mean, I think that was one of the things that I ended up mentioning to them was like, get to know people, have those conversations, have in-depth conversations with folks. Don't be afraid to share. And that like, you never know where those conversations will lead you. Which I'm sure everybody here knows, but it's just the thought that I was having as you two were talking. Audrey, I don't know if you want to read what you wrote in the chat.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to generally bump the past few thoughts of like smaller scale networks and communities of support being sustainable and fruitful for building relationships, and just feeling like relationships and like learning in our community is the practice of being in collectivity with each other. And also Zoe has something in the chat, I'll upload that too. Yes, on sharing between one micro community and another. This is why I wanted to share the Facebook group that got started in a micro community in Brussels, and on sharing it. Thank you. I feel excited also to, maybe I can transition us into like our last, or maybe one of our last questions of discussion. I feel excited to now, as a group, we've sort of named like some of our needs, some of our experiences in creating and building and feeling collective care with each other and where we want to see it more. I would love to have our last kind of group brain think around how do we think beyond and then build the structures that are going to support all of us and give us space to have our needs met. And I can put that in the chat. So how do we think beyond the specifically the capitalist and white supremacist structures that keep us separated from each other and build spaces that support all of us? And I'm not going to type it, I'm going to copy and paste it because I'm remembering that I have it written down. Sweet. I'll open it up to y'all. Feel free to throw our names in to think on this one. Zoe, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I want to talk because your question just like triggered something in my mind right away. Is that like what was this, yesterday, 2 days ago? 2 days ago, I met up with a guy that I have met recently, and he is an artist, he's a musician, he's very creative, very passionate, wants to build something, is into community, is you know, into kind of personal transformation as well. Like a lot of these things, which I thought like, okay, we have so much in common, and like we could, you know, I being that I just moved here, I'm like super alone and I don't have any connections, like people that I can build things with. So I met this guy and I thought, I was like really excited. I was like, yeah, like we can like do something together, like we can jam together and discuss things, like. And then like I just thought like we just ended up getting in a huge conflict because like I felt like he wasn't listening to my ideas. I felt like he wasn't interested in my ideas. Like, and I don't know, maybe it's a little bit intimidating because I come from a different place where like we think about things differently. I don't know, we have different ideas that people haven't thought of here, or I don't know, maybe they have, but they use different words. Like, I mean, I don't know what the thing is, but like, it was just, I felt like I'm also really sensitive about this, like, you know, because I've been in so many spaces where I felt like there just were voices that were dominating, and it's just, and so when I'm in this situation, like whether it's one-on-one or whatever, I feel like I don't have like the language or just the ability to kind of like try to make us both understand what's happening, you know, because I'm sure that he has the best of intentions as well, but he's also he was also in this kind of space of like, yeah, he wanted to like, you know, have me, he wanted to get laid probably as well. And that was like another factor in addition to like the kind of friendly thing that was happening. So it was just, yeah, this is just like a problem that I just wanted to put out there. But yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that's so weird. Yeah, maybe like how are we really hearing and seeing and communicating with each other? Yeah, maybe I'll pass it over to Steph.
Yeah, so I think my answer to that question is going back to what I said earlier, is about skill sharing. Like we all have the tools and we all have the knowledge. We just have to tap into each other. You know, there are people who are in agriculture work, who are in farming work. Those people can hold workshops and there can be an exchange. You know, architects, like we know these people are in our communities. We just have to identify what the needs are and then share these skills so that we all can have these skills in order to build our own utopias, or like, you know, this post-capitalist world that we all dream of and hope for our children, nibblings, future generations. And so I think that's just something that I feel strongly about, outside of performance, is just like cultivating these skills so that when shit goes down, like we have what we need and we know what we need in order to survive, in order to protect ourselves and our communities. And oh my gosh, I'm sorry, my chihuahua. And yeah, I guess I'm just gonna say this now. I'm also like really interested in, like, after this meeting, to like connect with folks via email. So like I'm just gonna put my email in the chat, and feel free to like email me, introduce yourself. Like I have a project that I'm working on with Audrey, and I'm really interested in having partners in Detroit. And then we can talk about the project a little more if y'all are interested, but it's a movement sound project. And yeah, it uses the Black body as a site of investigative research to kind of understand techno music as a liberated body. And it's something that I've been like really passionate about. And so yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there before we end. So I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and if y'all want to like talk, just email me. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Steph. And yes, for the plug, put that email in there. Yeah, I'm gonna read aloud Carlos put in the chat. think the question is really, what do people need? Is it resources, space? Is it ideas and cultivation? Is it understanding how to enter into a collaboration? What are the end goals of micro projects? Yeah. I think I might also add my own thought to that, is like a way to think beyond and create these spaces that support each other is to be in continuous conversation on what we need. And I don't know the answers to those to your specific questions, but I think it might be all of it. Okay, I see a Zoe and a Carlos, so I'm gonna pass it to Carlos, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking about Zoe trying to.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think you all know what I said.
You were like, okay, I had a thought to Zoe, and then I'm gonna put my name in. I hear you.
Yeah. I think you showing up today, Zoe, at this collective and just so you know, I'm calling in from Richmond, Virginia, but you know, I feel like, you know, all you guys are extended family because I spent a lot of time obviously cultivating and doing things out in Detroit and Michigan, and should be back up that way in a couple of months. So I'll stop in and say hey to who's ever around. But you know, lean in on these micro communities that maybe can help you expand with you being new to the community. Because I understand having my own travels, you know, living out of a suitcase, you know, dancing for, you know, collaborators, that it can be intimidating, overwhelming, scary, you know, navigating that this time, especially even inside of Corona, where as artists, you're just, you know, I think I'm going to say this word. I hope no one's triggered, but it's like, you know, you feel like you're dying inside because you can't touch another human. And what is it that's just screaming in space? And I'm a big contactor, so I can't roll on anybody. And I'm trying to find people with dogs so I can just roll on their dog. You know, so, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, you kind of went through a wonky situation with that, you know, individual, but I will say that it does just take time to, you know, search out the right collaborators and leaning into the micro communities, asking like, hey, you know, are there musicians? Are there, you know, whatever your needs are, it's better just to ask, because what happens is if one person doesn't know, then they're going to know somebody that has a degree of separation that maybe can point you into the right direction of somebody that's got some good vibes, good energies. And one thing that I've been doing, again, you know, I just have to reflect. You know, Zazen sitting, Buddhist principles and stuff that I kind of research is like less is more, right? So sometimes we are so excited that we're collaborating with someone and we want to make something really large. And this is where I go back to like saying, hey, let's just have a little small, you know, ta-da, to see if it works, to see if it's like, is this going to gel right? And then either way, no harm, no foul if it does or doesn't, because we're just scratching the surface. We're just having that, you know, first dance per se. And if that goes well and you kind of get a good vibe, then you can cultivate more. Or if you say, hey, you know, that was cool, maybe we just need to figure out if it's going to be the right partnership. Maybe then you can segue as you found somebody else that can maybe you bring in and introduce to the collaboration that, you know, because, you know, sometimes meeting new people is just awkward or weird. And I'm not going to take anything away. Yeah, dude might have just been a jerk and just out for one thing in mind, because you know that does happen out here in the real world. But I want to encourage you that there's a good family out there in Detroit, and lean in on those micro communities that can help feed what you're looking for.
Miria, did you have a?
Yeah, I was gonna come off. I feel like this is maybe really obvious and goes without saying, but I think it's also just recognizing the structures as capitalist and white supremacist. like understanding and recognizing those structures at all. What falls underneath those things? The ways professionalism perpetuates that, the way that some of the things that we've gotten really used to and comfortable understanding are actually in, I guess, most benefit to capitalism. It's most benefit to white supremacy. And like, I don't know, I was like, maybe this is just obvious, but it feels like even just knowing that allows you to think beyond it so that you can start to unpack what really falls into those categories to begin with. That was one of my thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for naming that, Miriam. That's like super integral. I want to pass it to Steph, and then I think after Steph, I'll take us into a sort of checkout. So go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thinking about capitalism and how it thrives on the individual, and I think a lot of us have a tendency to enter spaces in that way. I mean, even like a Zoom meeting, we're in our own little boxes, right? um, and I like want to invite folks to even start thinking about this meeting as the beginning of a micro community. You know, like how can we continue to hold conversations with each other around this work, because it's work that we don't all have the answers to, right? We're all like collectivizing in order to brainstorm and figure out what works best for the collective body. And so I'm just curious to know how we can all continue to have these conversations and check in with each other and ask what we all need.
Yeah, thanks for grounding us in that reminder too, of like we're all figuring this out and creating it, co-creating it as time passes. And I also want to note that it's almost on the hour, so I think we'll transition to some sort of simmering checkout before we leave the space today. And I feel a lot of gratitude for this thick discussion that we emerged into some like slow and juicy like cloud puffs of golden nuggets of information. So I'm excited to continue to simmer on this and continue to build. But let's take a moment. We thought of this metaphor as like a little cookie, because we have been hearing, I think in a recent meeting, okay, popcorn style is like a way to kind of just like popcorn in the chat or popcorn, like a little thought. But instead of popcorn, we're like, what is like a sweeter and slower treat? So we're offering as our checkout, what is your like little cookie for the rest of your day that you might take with you from this discussion? And that could be something that you're simmering on that was brought up, or something that was like sweet that you want to carry with you for the rest of today. And we can share just by simply unmuting yourself and saying a few words, a sentence of what is your sweet thing that you're going to take with you from this conversation? What are you still simmering on in the rest of your Sunday? And maybe also could answer a little bit of, I think, what Steph offered of like, how can we keep having these conversations? Maybe that's too much. Any of those things. And yeah, whoever wants to start us off, feel free to share your cookie, and then people can join in.
I'll start. I'm smiling and feeling gratitude for the word micro communities, and that I liked also like what they are, in addition to the word micro communities, just like micro communities. So that's mine.
I'm thinking about what people need, and like how organizations ask what does the community need, And like, where does that live? How can it live somewhere all the time where people can, I don't know, have that be in conversations with the organization? I'm thinking about that as part of Collective Sweat. It's like, how do we do that as an organization, or continue to?
My cookie is this idea of sharing outside of social media, which, yeah, it's just something that I'm really curious about for my own practice and my own relationship with social media, and ways that I can detach myself more and also feel like I have community. Because right now, like, a bulk of my community is through social media, just because, you know, we're not physically in contact with folks.
Maddie said you can also add your cookie checkout to the chat if you prefer.
My cookie checkout is how can I be of service? What can I do to help? What is needed? So what is needed? What you need me to do? If I can help, I will help. So what we're going to do, we're going to create something where we can have a show every year. That's what we're going to do. It got to start somewhere, right? So that's what we're going to do.
My cookie is just like this. It's hard to say something specific because this whole conversation has been like beautiful and a little bit emotionally overwhelming for me. But I think just this, like, just the fact that we're like asking each other, what is caring? How can we care for each other? What are our needs? That's huge. What do we need? And shit, I lost my train of thought. But I don't know, just the fact to like have this conversation is just really powerful and really healing, I think, because like it made me realize, like, damn, like I do need this, you know, I do need like this kind of community. I do need these kinds of spaces where like we can talk in this way that we are talking now. So I hope that, yeah, we can continue to do that. And I also want to point out that it's getting warmer, so pretty soon we could go outside again.
I'll read into the space Becca's cookie, potential for building and more collaboration. Grateful for all that has been shared in the space. Thanks, Becca, for that. I'll share my cookie, and it's that I'm sitting with continuing to build and be in relationship to each other as the work, and feeling like that's how we'll know what each other needs. What I can't talk right now. What are each other's needs? Is by being in relationship rather than having to continuously be in practice of what do people need? What do people need? If we're in relationship and if we're speaking to each other and if we're knowing each other, then we'll be responding to each other. So that's what I'm simmering on. Does anyone else have any last cookie thoughts that they want to name or say aloud? All right. I think it's time to head out. maybe if we want to take 1 second to maybe take a group breath in, come to your body, and then your own time, just taking one slow breath in and out. And maybe doing that one more time, letting the body inhale and exhale at its own pace. Just knowing what you're holding, knowing that you're sitting with a lot, and just moving through the day with the rest of your day with as much ease as possible, as much breath as possible. And I'm going to pass it over to Maddie, who's just got a couple very last minute logistical checkouts. And I think that's it. I think that's all we got.
Yeah, I will breeze us through just sort of like what's coming up for CSD. The first thing I'm going to add to the chat is just some donation info for CSD if you feel able, called, whatever, or like pass it on to your whoever who might want to donate as well. This program is free and it will always be free, and it's like no pressure to donate, but if you can, that's how you do it. In March, we've been planning on doing some kind of like community survey to sort of gauge interest in like coming back to classes and like what that looks like, and also sort of like general CSD programming. So I imagine that we will reflect on this conversation before we send that survey out, because they feel very related. Also in March, we might try a new like super secret, super new program that won't be a secret when we announce it, but to sort of like try to bring some like low pressure movement into a virtual space. It's like, is it a class? Is it hanging out? We don't know yet. Stay tuned. And we also plan on sending out some notes from this forum, and we'll send a follow-up survey for any like further reflections that you may have after like simmering with what happened today. You can let us know, and feedback, of course. And we are also planning on doing a part 2 of this collectivity forum sometime this spring. So follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and we have a newsletter that we're going to put you on because we have your emails now. So you'll know all about everything.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Good. This was good.
I appreciate each of you. Enjoy your days. And we'll see y'all next time.